No one in the galaxy noticed when Earth went quiet. That was the first mistake. Across the core systems, the great empires gathered in light-filled chambers of crystal and steel. Holograms of stars floated in the air. Data streams flowed like rivers. Every known species was represented. Tall, short, scaled, furred, mechanical. Ancient powers that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. At the center of the discussion was a small, unremarkable star system. Sol, Earth. A junior archivist spoke first, her voice calm, bored. Humanity, she said, projecting an image of a blue planet. Population high. Technology level, moderate. Political unity, non-existent. Psychological profile, aggressive, emotional, easily divided. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some laughed. Others lost interest immediately. They fight each other constantly, another delegate added. They have never faced a true galactic power. They will break. The vote was not difficult. Destroying Earth was considered wasteful. Humans were strong laborers. Creative. Adaptable. Useful. So the galaxy chose a different fate for them. Enslavement. Thousands of warships began moving toward the Sol system. Fleets so vast they darkened space itself. Commanders boasted openly. This would be fast. Clean. Easy. Humanity would learn its place. As the armadas crossed the final jump point, standard procedure began. Long-range scans. Communication probes. A demand for surrender, translated into every known human language. The message was simple. Submit. Your world now belongs to us. There was no reply. Alien commanders smiled. This was expected. Fear caused silence. They moved closer. Still nothing. No countermessage. No threats. No panic broadcasts leaking from the planet. Earth's global networks were quiet. Too quiet. Scans showed cities still standing. Power grids active. Atmosphere normal. No orbital defenses firing. No fleets rising to meet them. Have they already collapsed? One commander joked. Did they destroy themselves before we arrived? Laughter echoed across command decks. The fleets entered Earth's orbit. And that was when the first strange thing happened. Human satellites began powering down. One by one. Not destroyed. Not hacked. Simply turned off. Then Earth's cities went dark. Every major population center lost power within seconds. Lights vanished across continents. The planet became a shadow with faint outlines of oceans and clouds. A tactical officer frowned. They are shutting themselves down? Primitive fear response, another replied. They think hiding will save them. Landing operations were approved. Dropships descended toward the surface. Millions of troops prepared to deploy. Chains, containment fields, control collars, all ready. Still no resistance. Then, across every fleet channel at once, a signal appeared. Not a demand. Not a scream. Not a plea. A single transmission. Clear. Calm. Human. This is Earth. The voice was steady. No fear. No anger. Just certainty. You are trespassing. The chamber aboard the flagship fell silent. Commanders stared at the signal in disbelief. The translation confirmed it again and again. No threats followed. No explanation. One admiral leaned forward, amused. Is that all? The human voice continued. For over a century, you watched us, it said. You studied our wars. Our failures. Our divisions. Images flickered across alien screens. Human history, pulled from open galactic archives. World wars. Nuclear fire. Cities burning. Chaos. You saw weakness, the voice said. So did we. Dropships continued descending. No one ordered them to stop. The human voice did not change. You believed we never unified. That we never learned. That we never prepared. A pause. Then the words that changed everything. You believed we were still on Earth. Every commander froze. What does that mean? Someone whispered. Before anyone could respond, every long-range sensor screamed at once. Contacts appeared at the edge of known space. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. No jump signatures. No known drive systems. The ships simply appeared, as if space itself had opened its eyes. They were not massive. Not elegant. But they moved with impossible coordination. Perfect spacing. Perfect silence. Human vessels. The human voice returned, quieter now. You came to enslave a planet. A second pause. We became something else. The alien fleets scrambled to respond. Weapons powered up. Shields flared to full strength. Too late. The human transmission ended with a final sentence, broadcast across every empire, every world, every star system. You should have destroyed us when you had the chance. And then Earth disappeared from every scanner at once. Not destroyed. Gone. The galaxy held its breath and realized, far too late, that it had just awakened something it did not understand. The galaxy had fought wars for millions of years. This had never happened. Across the combined invasion fleets, alarms screamed in patterns no one recognized. Sensors conflicted with each other. Visual feeds showed empty space where a planet should be. Navigation systems still calculated Earth's gravity, but there was nothing there to orbit. Soul was broken. Admiral Kethare stared at the holographic display in disbelief. His fleet had arrived with perfect formation. Now it drifted in confusion, ships colliding gently as gravity data lied to their engines. Confirm, he demanded. Is the planet destroyed? No, Admiral. A technician replied, voice shaking. There was no energy release. No debris. No radiation spike. Then where is it? No one answered. Communication officers tried to re-establish contact with landing forces. Thousands of dropships had been descending moments ago. Their signals were gone. Not cut. Not jammed. Erased. One by one, fleet commanders across different empires reported the same thing. Entire battalions missing. Ships disappearing without explosions. Sensors detecting movement where nothing could be seen. The galaxy's greatest armada, assembled to enslave a single world, had lost control of reality itself. An emergency council was called within minutes. Holographic representatives flickered into existence from distant star systems. Fear replaced arrogance. This is impossible, snarled a warlord from the outer spiral. Humans do not possess this level of technology. They shouldn't, another replied quietly. But they do. Records were reopened. Human files, once ignored, were pulled apart with desperation. Every classified observation, every unexplained incident. A pattern began to form. Human ships had been spotted outside known trade routes decades ago. Human probes had mapped unstable regions of space others avoided. Human colonies had gone silent, assumed failures. They were not failures. They were hidden. Back in the Sol system, the invasion fleets attempted to regroup. Orders were issued to pull back, to form defensive lines. Shields remained at maximum. Weapons charged. Nothing fired. Because there was nothing to fire at. Then a single ship vanished. No warning. No impact. One moment it existed, the next it was gone. Its position replaced by empty space. The fleet recoiled. Moments later, another ship disappeared. Then another. Panic spread. Spread out, someone shouted. They can't hit us all. The order made things worse. The human ships were still unseen, but their presence was felt. Formation was no longer safety. Isolation was death. A frigate on the edge of the fleet managed to send a distress signal before it vanished. The recording replayed across command decks. The crew was screaming. Not from pain. From confusion. They're inside the walls, a voice cried. They're not breaching, they're already. The recording cut to static. The emergency council watched in silence. One delegate finally spoke. They are not fighting us. What? They are hunting us. As if responding to the words, human vessels finally revealed themselves. Not all at once. One at a time. They appeared at impossible angles, emerging from folded space, from shadows, from places sensors swore were empty. Their designs were simple. Dark. No visible weapons. No glowing engines. They did not attack immediately. They watched. The human voice returned across open channels. Not a broadcast this time. A conversation. You are still thinking like conquerors, it said. Some commanders shouted orders. Others demanded surrender talks. None of it mattered. You believe power is size, the voice continued. Numbers. Control. A human ship drifted closer to a flagship, stopping just outside weapon range. We learned long ago, the voice said, that survival comes from understanding limits. The human ship did not fire. Instead, it transmitted data. Star maps. Fleet positions. Private command codes. Conversations that were supposed to be secure. The galaxy realized something horrifying. Humanity had already won before the invasion began. Every move the empires made had been predicted, simulated, accounted for. The human fleets did not destroy ships quickly. They disabled them. Engines failed. Life support flickered. Gravity reversed suddenly. killing crews without damaging hulls. This was not war. This was punishment. Admiral Kethare watched his flagship lose power section by section. Systems shut down in a precise sequence, as if someone was turning off lights in a room. "Open all channels," he ordered. "We surrender." There was no reply. Across the galaxy, rebellions erupted. Slave worlds saw opportunity. Empires pulled fleets back in panic, leaving borders unguarded. The human voice returned once more. "You came for chains," it said. "You will return with stories." Then something even worse happened. Earth returned. The planet reappeared in the Sol system exactly where it had been before. Lights on. Atmosphere intact. Cities visible. Peaceful. Untouched. The message was clear. Humanity had not fled. They had stepped aside. A final transmission spread across every surviving fleet, every empire capital, every world watching in fear. "This was not our defense," the voice said. "This was our warning." Human ships vanished again, leaving the invasion fleets broken, drifting, alive, but forever changed. The galaxy understood the truth at last. Earth had been the bait, and whatever humanity had become, it was only beginning to act. The galaxy tried to pretend nothing had changed. That lie lasted less than a day. Across hundreds of star systems, the same question echoed through command centers, academies, and imperial courts. What are humans? Not what they were listed as. Not what the old reports claimed. What they had become. Emergency councils replaced celebrations. Statues of conquerors were removed in silence. Records once dismissed as human exaggeration were reopened with shaking hands. The Sol incident was labeled an anomaly at first. Then the data kept coming. Human ships had appeared near strategic worlds without attacking. Human signals had overridden secure networks, then vanished. Entire battle groups reported systems failing at the same second across light years. No explosions. No battles to glorify. Just control. The galaxy's strongest empires had not lost a war. They had lost certainty. In a hidden archive on the capital world of the Threx Dominion, an elderly historian worked alone. His species lived long enough to remember patterns others forgot. He had studied extinct civilizations for centuries. Humans frightened him. Not because they were violent, because they were patient. He pulled up ancient footage. Early human spaceflight. Crude ships. Loud engines. Fragile hulls. Their failures were public, humiliating, well documented. That was the lie. Humans never hid their weakness. They weaponized it. While the galaxy watched human wars and divisions, humanity learned something no empire ever had. How to lose without dying. Every defeat taught them logistics. Every disaster taught redundancy. Every collapse taught recovery. They did not aim to rule early. They aimed to last. A classified Threx report, buried for decades, resurfaced. It described a human research doctrine once laughed at by alien analysts. Survivability over dominance. Adaptation over expansion. Victory defined by continuity. The historian's hands trembled. No empire had ever thought that way. Empires expanded until they broke. Humans expanded until they understood where breaking happened. And then they planned around it. Far from the core worlds, a minor empire attempted something desperate. They launched a retaliatory strike toward Earth. Not to enslave. To erase. Their logic was simple. Remove the threat before it grows. The fleet never reached Sol. Human ships intercepted them at the edge of interstellar void, where navigation failed and signals died. There was no battle. The attacking fleet returned hours later. Intact. Every ship functional. Every crew alive. And every commander resigned within a day. They would not explain why. They could not sleep. Rumors spread faster than data. Some said humans could see the future. Others claimed they lived outside time. Many believed Earth was no longer their home, that humanity had moved somewhere unreachable. None of it was true. Which was worse? The truth emerged piece by piece. Humanity had never relied on one world. Earth was not their capital. It was their symbol. Their population had spread slowly, quietly, into systems no empire wanted. Harsh stars, unstable orbits, radiation-heavy regions, places only humans could endure. Where other species saw death, humans saw training. Their bodies adapted. Their technology hardened. Their psychology changed. Pain became data. Fear became noise. Loss became memory. An intercepted human internal message leaked into galactic networks. It was not meant to be read by aliens. It was simple. If they are watching, let them see us fail. If they are listening, let them hear us argue. If they are judging, let them think us small. The message ended with a timestamp. It was over 80 years old. The galaxy went silent. On Earth, life continued. Children went to school. Music played in streets. Storms rolled over oceans. The planet looked unchanged. But beneath cities, beneath mountains, beneath oceans, something waited. Human infrastructure ran deeper than any empire imagined. Not bunkers. Networks. Not weapons. Systems. Human civilization had learned how to disappear without dying, and how to return without warning. A second emergency council convened, larger than the first. This time, fear was not hidden. We underestimated them, one ruler admitted. No, another replied. We misunderstood them. The difference mattered. Humans did not seek revenge. They sought correction. Empires that relied on fear began to collapse from within. Slave worlds revolted, not because humans told them to, but because human silence showed something was possible. Freedom without conquest. Power without rule. Humanity did not offer alliances. They offered examples. Then came the signal that changed everything. A human beacon activated in deep space, far from Earth. It was not a threat. It was an invitation. Coordinates followed, along with a message. You wanted to know what we are. Come see what we built when you stopped paying attention. Some empires ignored it. Some prepared fleets. Some sent diplomats. None of them were ready for what waited at those coordinates. Because the place humans chose to reveal themselves was not a ship, not a station, not a world. It was a graveyard. The remains of civilizations older than the empires now ruling the galaxy. Civilizations that had made the same mistake. They had tried to enslave humanity's ancestors and failed. The galaxy finally understood. Humans were not new. They were the survivors of something much older. And now, for the first time, humanity was done hiding that fact. The beacon pulsed once more, and the message changed. This is where we learned. This is where you decide. The coordinates led nowhere any empire claimed. That alone was unsettling. The region sat beyond mapped trade lanes, past safe jump routes, deep in a volume of space marked only by warnings and empty notes. Navigation charts called it unstable. Sensors returned conflicting data. Stars there behaved strangely, their gravity pulling in ways that made no sense. It was a place the galaxy had learned to avoid. Humans had chosen it on purpose. The first delegation arrived carefully. Not a war fleet. Not a single ship either. A balanced formation, shields high, weapons powered but silent. They expected a trap. What they found was worse. The moment they exited jump space, their sensors lit up, not with threats, but with wreckage. Thousands of broken hulls drifted in the dark. Ships of every known design. Ancient styles. Lost empires. Hull markings that matched species believed extinct for millennia. Some wrecks were fused together. Others were torn apart cleanly, as if sliced with impossible precision. No signs of scavenging. No attempts at repair. A graveyard. This predates us, one commander whispered. The scale was enormous. The wreckage filled space like a frozen storm, stretching farther than sensors could reach. And in the center of it all was a structure. Not human in shape. Not alien either. It was massive, geometric, and old beyond measure. Its surface was scarred by weapons no longer understood. Entire sections were missing, as if bitten away by something larger than ships. The structure was dead. No power. No signals. Yet human beacons surrounded it, calm and steady, marking the area like lanterns in the dark. A human transmission activated. This is not ours, the voice said. The words were simple. This is what tried to own us. Long before humanity reached the stars, something else had. The truth came slowly, revealed through shared data, images, and recovered records. A civilization older than the current galaxy powers. Vast, methodical, convinced that intelligence existed to be controlled. They had found early humanity. Primitive, divided, confined to one planet. Perfect. They had arrived with the same confidence the empires had shown at Earth. And they had made the same choice. Enslave. Use. Discard. The human voice continued, steady but heavy. They did not understand us, it said. They thought time was on their side. Images showed early human resistance. Not fleets. Not weapons. Survival. Hidden populations. Cultural memory passed in stories. Knowledge buried and protected. Entire generations raised with one lesson. Never let them see what you become. The ancient masters had ruled humanity for centuries, and then they had vanished. The reason was now clear. They had underestimated endurance. The delegations watched in silence as human records played. Humans did not defeat their enslavers with strength. They outlasted them. They learned their systems, their habits, their weaknesses. They waited while the masters fought other wars, grew complacent, stretched too far. When the rebellion came, it was quiet. Sabotage, collapse, infrastructure failure. The masters fell not to an uprising, but to the slow removal of everything they depended on. By the time they realized humanity was free, their empire was already dead. This, the human voice said, is the cost of believing control lasts forever. The delegations felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, recognition. They saw themselves in the ancient wrecks. Their fleets, their doctrines, their certainty. Humanity had not only survived oppression, they had studied it. And then they had built their entire civilization around never allowing it again. More delegations arrived. Some out of curiosity, some out of desperation, some to plan violence. None of them attacked. Because the graveyard was not guarded by force. It was guarded by truth. Human ships appeared and disappeared freely, guiding visitors through the wreckage. They did not block weapons. They did not threaten. They let the empires look. Let them measure. Let them imagine their own fleets drifting here one day. A military coalition finally made its choice. They would strike. If humanity was allowed to define the future, the age of empires would end. That could not be permitted. A combined strike force assembled in secret. Hundreds of ships, advanced weapons, commanders chosen for loyalty, not wisdom. They targeted the graveyard. Not Earth. Not human colonies. They believed this place was symbolic. They believed destroying it would break the myth. The attack began without warning. Weapons fired into the wreckage field. Energy beams tore through ancient hulls. Missiles detonated across dead metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space moved. The graveyard responded. The wrecks shifted, not randomly, but with intent. Ancient hulls rotated, aligned, and drifted into defensive formations that should not have been possible. The attacking fleets hesitated. Too late. Human ships appeared, not in front, but inside enemy formations. No shots fired. Instead, the graveyard activated. The ancient structure at its center came alive. Not fully, just enough. Gravity surged. Space folded. Time lagged. Enemy weapons failed as targeting systems lost meaning. Ships slammed into each other as physics changed direction. The strike force collapsed in minutes. Human ships did not pursue. They did not destroy fleeing vessels. They let them run. The message was clear. This place does not need us to defend it. Across the galaxy, rulers finally understood. Humanity was not threatening domination. They were ending the era that made domination possible. Empires built on fear began to crumble. Not from attack, but from realization. Their fleets were obsolete. Their methods were known. Their future was limited. A final message went out from humanity. Not to rulers. To everyone. We do not want your worlds, the voice said. We do not want your labor. We want you to remember. Images of the graveyard filled every screen. This is what happens to those who believe intelligence exists to be owned. Silence followed. Long, heavy, permanent. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. And for the first time in its history, humanity was not asking to be heard. They were waiting, watching, to see who would change, and who would join the wrecks drifting in the dark. The galaxy had always believed power came from force. That belief began to collapse. After the graveyard attack failed, no empire celebrated. No victory speeches echoed through marble halls. No flags were raised. Instead, leaders stared at empty maps and unreadable futures. Humanity had not punished the attackers. They had let them fail. That was worse. Across imperial capitals, advisors argued late into endless nights. Generals demanded retaliation. Economists warned of collapse. Priests spoke of omens. Historians whispered a single word again and again. Transition. Humanity was not conquering. They were changing the rules. The first real fracture came from within. A mid-sized empire, old and respected, ruled dozens of worlds through forced labor. Its fleets were strong. Its economy depended on obedience. When human influence reached its borders, nothing happened at first. No threats, no fleets, no demands. Just silence. Then slave worlds began to stop responding. Not violently. Administrators sent reports. Productivity slowing, local officials resigning, enforcement units returning to orbit without explanation. On one world, overseers arrived to find cities empty. The population had not fled. They had gathered. In open fields. In streets. In front of orbital elevators. They stood unarmed. And they refused to work. The Empire threatened orbital strikes. The response was simple. Do it, the message said. The humans will see. The overseers froze. Because everyone knew what that meant. Humanity had never promised protection. But every empire now feared their attention. The strikes never came. The Empire withdrew its forces. The first slave world was free. This spread faster than war ever could. Other worlds followed. Not coordinated. Not planned. Just inspired. Humanity had shown that empires were not invincible. And more importantly, that obedience was a choice. In response, several empires made a decision born of desperation. They would take hostages. If humans valued freedom, they would be forced to choose between ideals and lives. The target was obvious. Earth. The fleets moved carefully this time. Smaller. Faster. Quiet. They did not announce their arrival. They aimed for population centers. Major cities. Cultural sites. The message was prepared in advance. Stand down, or we burn your cradle. The galaxy held its breath. This was the moment everyone waited for. The test. Humanity responded within seconds. Not with fleets. Not with weapons. With evacuation. Across Earth, cities emptied faster than logic allowed. Transportation systems activated that no empire had ever detected. Underground networks, orbital lifts, hidden launch systems. Millions moved with calm precision. No panic. No chaos. Children guided by machines. Elders assisted by strangers. Entire populations flowing like a single organism. Alien commanders watched in disbelief. How did they prepare this? One whispered. The answer came too late. Earth was not humanity's weak point. It was their lesson. The fleets advanced anyway. They wanted proof. They wanted fear. Instead, they found resistance they could not understand. Human defenses activated, not as walls or guns, but as denial. Targeting systems failed to lock onto evacuated zones. Weapons lost guidance. Navigation warped near population centers. Human technology did not stop attacks. It made them impossible to aim. This violates every known combat law. A commander shouted. Yes, his advisor replied softly. That is the point. Then the human message arrived. Broadcast everywhere. We warned you, the voice said. You chose to threaten children. The tone did not rise. It did not need to. Human fleets emerged, not around Earth, but around the attackers' home systems. Not firing. Waiting. The message continued. We will not trade lives. But we will remove the ability to make that choice again. What followed was not destruction. It was dismantling. Shipyards shut down as supply chains vanished. Energy grids failed as control systems reset themselves. Military AIs locked their own commanders out. No planets burned. No civilians died. Empires woke up to find themselves unable to wage war. Their power, carefully built over centuries, simply stopped working. The hostage fleets retreated in panic. They returned to empires that could no longer command them. Some commanders surrendered on the spot. Others fled. Many did not survive the journey home, not from attack, but from internal collapse. Mutinies, revolutions, civil wars. Humanity did not intervene. They did not choose sides. They watched. In a quiet system far from Earth, a human council met. Not rulers. Not generals. Representatives. Their discussion was calm. This is working, one said. Yes, another replied. But it is not finished. They knew the truth. Fear alone would not end the cycle. Something else was needed. A choice. The next human broadcast shocked everyone. It was not addressed to empires. It was addressed to people. To those living under rule you did not choose, the message said. We are not coming to save you. Gasps echoed across worlds. We cannot give you freedom. Silence. We can only make it possible. The message ended with coordinates. Not weapon sites. Not capitals. Safe zones. Places where human protection would exist. Not control. Protection. No taxes. No chains. No rulers. Just one rule. No one owns anyone. The reaction was immediate. Refugees fled across space. Scientists. Workers. Soldiers, families, entire populations abandoned empires that could no longer force them to stay. The galaxy had never seen migration on this scale. Empires tried to stop it. They failed, because humans did not block fleets. They opened doors. For the first time, the galaxy faced a future without clear borders, without permanent rulers, without unquestioned authority, and that terrified those who had built their power on obedience. One ancient empire made its final choice. If they could not rule the galaxy, they would burn it. Deep within their territory, a forbidden weapon powered up, one designed to collapse stars, to make entire regions uninhabitable, a weapon humanity had never revealed knowledge of, or so they believed. The human response came before the weapon finished charging. A single message: we know. The ancient empire's leaders stared in horror as their own star began to dim, not from attack, but from controlled shutdown. Their sun was no longer theirs. The weapon went dark. The empire surrendered. The galaxy understood at last. Humanity was not forcing peace. They were removing the ability to enforce cruelty. And now, every remaining empire faced the same question: adapt or fade. The age of chains was ending, not with fire, but with choice. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy realized something far more frightening than human power. Humanity was patient, and they were not done yet. The galaxy did not fall into chaos all at once. It unraveled slowly, quietly, in ways no empire had prepared for. Trade routes emptied first. Convoys stopped arriving. Merchant guilds reported that human-protected safe zones were offering free passage, free markets, and something even more dangerous: fair rules. Worlds that had survived centuries under tribute suddenly saw another option, and once that idea existed, it could not be erased. Empires issued orders, threats, and laws, but fewer listened each cycle. Authority began to feel like an old story people no longer believed. Military leaders were the next to panic. Fleets still existed, but they no longer mattered. Ships could fly, weapons could fire, yet every commander knew the truth they refused to say aloud. If humanity decided those fleets should stop working, they would. Not tomorrow. Not after a battle. Instantly. Power that could be turned off was not power at all. It was permission, and humanity had stopped giving it. On dozens of worlds, garrisons simply stood down. Soldiers removed insignia, powered down weapons, and waited. They were not defeated. They were finished. Officers tried to restore order, but orders without certainty sounded hollow. Even loyalty cracked when soldiers realized their rulers could no longer protect them from consequences. Humanity did not threaten punishment. That was the most terrifying part. Empires had always ruled through fear of what would happen if you disobeyed. Humans ruled through the fear of what might happen if they noticed you at all. In the core systems, the last Grand Imperial Council gathered in secrecy. Ancient beings sat beneath banners older than most civilizations. They spoke of unity, of one final stand, of reminding humanity that the galaxy was not theirs to reshape. But even as the words were spoken, data scrolled in the background showing systems withdrawing support, fleets refusing mobilization, and border worlds declaring neutrality. One ruler finally said what everyone else felt, but feared to admit. We are no longer in control of events. We are reacting to them. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Empires had never survived reaction. They survived initiative. Humanity had taken that from them without firing a single ceremonial shot. Then the humans changed tactics again. Without warning, human ships appeared above former slave worlds, not as occupiers, but as witnesses. They did not land troops. They did not replace governments. They simply stayed. Orbital platforms projected shields that blocked outside interference, but did not restrict movement below. For the first time in history, entire planets experienced what it meant to exist without an overlord watching the skies. Some worlds collapsed into chaos, unprepared for freedom. Humanity did not intervene. Others organized councils, shared resources, and stabilized faster than anyone believed possible. Those worlds became proof that fear had never been necessary to govern. That proof spread faster than any fleet. The remaining empires grew desperate. Propaganda networks flooded the galaxy with warnings. Humans were manipulators. Humans were liars. Humans were planning to rule everything. But the words felt empty against reality. Humans were not demanding loyalty. They were not asking for taxes. They were not rewriting cultures. They were doing something far more subversive. They were letting people decide. For rulers who had spent their entire existence making choices for others, that was unforgivable. One empire made the final mistake. Old, vast, and bitter, it controlled systems through absolute force. Its leaders believed fear could still win. They announced a purge of any world showing human sympathy. Fleets were dispatched with orders to burn cities, destroy infrastructure, and leave nothing usable behind. The galaxy waited to see if humanity would finally respond with open war. They did not. Instead, every ship in those purge fleets lost power at the same second. Not damaged, not hacked in the way empires understood, simply disconnected from command reality. The ships drifted, alive but helpless, as human vessels appeared around them in silent formation. A human transmission followed, calm and measured. You have demonstrated intent to erase populations. That capability has been removed. The Empire screamed defiance. It demanded the return of its fleets. Humanity did not answer. Those fleets were escorted, gently and precisely, to storage orbits around uninhabited stars, where they would remain until no one remembered how to command them. The Empire still existed, but it was no longer dangerous. It had been declawed without bloodshed, and every ruler watching understood what that meant. Humanity could end wars without killing soldiers. That knowledge shattered centuries of military doctrine overnight. The psychological impact was devastating. Young species that had grown up under imperial rule felt something new, confidence. Old species felt something worse, irrelevance. Religious orders debated whether humanity was a corrective force or a judgment. Philosophers argued over whether this was evolution or extinction in a quieter form. Humanity did not join the debate. They continued building safe zones, stabilizing trade corridors, and quietly dismantling systems designed to enforce inequality. Their ships became a familiar sight, not as conquerors, but as constants. They were always there and never in charge. Earth remained unchanged in appearance, but its role transformed completely. It was no longer a home world in the traditional sense. It became a symbol, a reminder of where this all began. Pilgrims from across the galaxy traveled near its orbit, not to land, but to look. Humans allowed observation, nothing more. The message was clear. This world was not a throne. It was a warning. Those who remembered history would understand it. Those who did not would repeat it. Behind closed human channels, planners looked further ahead. They knew this phase would not last forever. There would be resistance, not from empires, but from those who feared a galaxy without clear masters. Humanity prepared for that quietly, patiently. They had centuries of practice waiting for the moment when others made the wrong choice. They were not rushing toward an end. They were guiding a transition. The final realization came not from a ruler or a general, but from a common citizen on a distant world. Watching human ships protect a trade convoy without claiming ownership, the citizen said something that spread across networks like wildfire. They are not taking power. They are making power meaningless. That sentence terrified every remaining empire more than any weapon ever could. If power no longer mattered, then neither did those who hoarded it. By the time the galaxy understood what humanity had truly done, it was already irreversible. Borders meant less. Titles meant nothing. Fear lost its currency. Humanity had not replaced the old order with a human one. They had removed the foundation the old order stood on. The age of empires did not end in fire or ruin. It ended in quiet disbelief, as rulers woke up to find no one waiting for their commands. And somewhere beyond the stars, humanity watched, patient as always, knowing the most dangerous part was still ahead. The galaxy reached a point it had never prepared for. There was no enemy left to fight, no throne left to seize, no clear villain to overthrow. Empires still existed on paper, but paper had lost its meaning. Titles were spoken and ignored. Decrees were issued and quietly bypassed. Humanity had not destroyed the old powers. They had left them standing, hollowed out, forced to look at themselves without the armor of fear. That was when the begging began. At first it was subtle, quiet diplomatic probes, carefully worded messages sent through neutral channels, requests for dialogue, cooperation, understanding. Humans received them all and answered none. Silence, once again, became their sharpest tool. The rulers who sent those messages felt something far worse than rejection. They felt uncertainty. They could not tell if humanity was considering their words, dismissing them, or simply waiting for something else to happen. Not knowing was unbearable. Then the requests became public. Broadcasts filled with ceremonial language and forced humility. Leaders who once spoke in absolutes now spoke of peace and coexistence. They praised human restraint, human wisdom, human patience. The galaxy watched these speeches with disbelief. These were the same voices that had voted to enslave Earth. The same hands that had signed orders for chains. Now those hands trembled as they asked for mercy, without saying the word out loud. Humanity still did not respond. That silence broke something fundamental. In the past, mercy had always followed victory. A conqueror would decide who lived, who served, who was spared. Humanity had won without declaring victory, and now no one knew when it was appropriate to kneel. Entire civilizations waited in a state of suspended fear, unsure if punishment was coming tomorrow or never. Trade slowed again, not from collapse, but from hesitation. No one wanted to make the wrong move while humans were watching. The first empire to say the word did so by accident. Its ruler was old, exhausted, and surrounded by advisors who no longer believed in the future they were defending. During a live address meant to reassure the population, the ruler faltered. The prepared speech ended, and raw truth slipped through. "We ask," the ruler said quietly, "for mercy." The transmission spread across the galaxy in minutes. The word echoed everywhere, heavy and irreversible. Humanity answered within the hour. Not with fleets, with presence. Human ships appeared above the capital world of that empire, not in formation, not with weapons ready, but spaced evenly, calmly, visibly. They did not block communication. They did not issue demands. A single human representative transmitted a message that every translator rendered the same way. "Mercy is not something we give to governments," the voice said. "It is something we allow people to practice." The message ended there. The empire's leadership did not understand at first. They waited for conditions, for terms, for punishment disguised as generosity. None came. What followed instead was something far more destabilizing. Human ships began escorting civilian transports out of imperial space. Refugees were not filtered by loyalty or usefulness. Anyone could leave. Anyone could stay. The empire protested. Humanity ignored the protests. Borders that had once been enforced by threat dissolved under the simple reality that enforcement no longer worked. Other empires watched and panicked. Some tried to reverse course, issuing reforms overnight, abolishing practices they had defended for centuries. Others doubled down, hoping fear could still hold what influence remained. Both approaches failed. Reform done out of panic lacked trust. Repression without teeth lacked power. Humanity did not intervene in either case. They let outcomes speak. On worlds long crushed under rule, people faced a terrifying question. What did freedom actually mean? Without overseers, some communities fractured. Old grudges surfaced. Violence erupted. Critics of humanity were quick to point at these failures as proof that control was necessary. Humanity responded by doing nothing. Not out of cruelty, but out of respect. They allowed those worlds to struggle, to fail, to learn. Where help was requested, it was given. Where it was not, it was withheld. For the first time, entire civilizations experienced consequences that were their own. A shift began in how humans were perceived. They were no longer just powerful or frightening. They became something harder to classify. Judges, perhaps, or mirrors. Empires that looked at humanity saw not an enemy, but the reflection of everything they had built and everything it had cost them. That reflection was unbearable to some. One remaining empire chose defiance. Not loud, not violent, but ideological. Its leaders declared humanity a destabilizing force that threatened the natural order of the galaxy. They argued that hierarchy was inevitable, that suffering was necessary, that peace without dominance was an illusion. Their speech resonated with those who feared uncertainty more than oppression. Humanity listened. For the first time in a long while, they responded directly. A human envoy arrived in person. No armor. No guards. The envoy spoke to the Imperial Council in clear, simple language. "You are right about one thing," the envoy said. "There will always be people who want control. We are not trying to erase that." The council leaned forward, sensing opportunity. The envoy continued. "We are erasing your ability to force it on others." The room went silent. The envoy stood and left. No threats were made. No ultimatums given. Within weeks, that empire's influence evaporated as allied worlds quietly withdrew support. The ideology remained. The power behind it did not. As the galaxy adjusted, something unexpected happened. People stopped talking about humanity as a single entity. They spoke instead of human ideas, human patience, human limits, human refusal. Humanity became less a species and more a standard by which actions were measured. That terrified those who still believed in permanent rule. You could fight a fleet. You could assassinate a leader. You could not fight an idea that asked nothing of you except responsibility. Finally, the great powers that remained did what they should have done at the beginning. They asked not for mercy, but for guidance. A formal delegation traveled to a neutral system, one humanity had designated as open ground. The delegates arrived unarmed. No titles were used. They sat across from human representatives and asked a single question. What do you want the galaxy to become? The humans took time to answer. Not hours. Days. When the response came, it was shared publicly. We do not know, the statement said. That choice does not belong to us. Confusion rippled through every listening world. The statement continued. We only know what it cannot be. Images followed. Chains. Mass graves. Silent worlds stripped of people. It cannot be this. The message ended. The delegates realized the truth then. Humanity was not building a future. They were removing the worst possible ones. What grew in the space left behind was not theirs to control. That was both terrifying and hopeful. As weeks passed, the word mercy changed meaning. It no longer meant forgiveness from a higher power. It meant restraint when you had the ability to dominate. It meant choosing not to repeat old cycles simply because you could. Humanity practiced that mercy relentlessly, not because they were kind, but because they remembered what happened when no one did. In the quiet that followed, the galaxy felt something unfamiliar. Not peace, not safety, possibility. And that possibility came with risk. Humanity knew it. The empires knew it. Everyone knew the hardest part was still ahead. A galaxy learning to choose would stumble. It would bleed. It would make mistakes. Humanity was ready for that. They had made every mistake first. Somewhere beyond the mapped stars, human observers recorded trends, probabilities, and warning signs. They did not smile. They did not celebrate. They watched, patient as ever, aware that mercy was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of the most dangerous chapter of all. For a long time, nothing dramatic happened. No great battles. No declarations. No final enemy rising from the dark. To many, it felt anticlimactic, as if the galaxy had been promised an ending and received only uncertainty. That misunderstanding was the last shadow of the old way of thinking. Humanity had never been moving toward a single moment. They were building something that could not be reduced to one day, one war, or one victory. And that made what came next far more powerful. The galaxy began to change in ways that were almost invisible. Trade routes reorganized themselves around stability instead of control. Worlds that had once existed only to feed imperial cores started trading directly with each other. Cultures long suppressed resurfaced, not because humans demanded it, but because no one was stopping them anymore. Languages returned. Histories were rewritten by those who had lived them. For the first time in recorded galactic time, progress did not flow from the top down. It spread sideways. This frightened humanity more than any fleet ever had. Not because it was wrong, but because it was fragile. Humans understood systems. They knew how easily hope could collapse under pressure. They watched closely, intervening only when a single action could prevent catastrophe without replacing choice. When a famine threatened a newly independent world, human logistics ships arrived with food and left without conditions. When rival factions prepared to tear a system apart, human mediators offered structure, not authority. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. Humanity accepted both outcomes. That acceptance confused everyone else. A turning point came when a former imperial capital invited a human delegation to witness the dismantling of its own throne. The structure had stood for thousands of years, a symbol of unquestioned power. The rulers had abdicated days earlier, not under threat, but under pressure from their own people. As the throne was taken apart piece by piece, no cheers erupted. No anger either. Just silence. The human delegation observed without comment. Later, One human was asked what they felt watching it happen. The answer spread across the galaxy. Relief, they said, because now they can stop pretending it was necessary. Not all worlds chose that path. Some descended into conflict, unable to let go of old hierarchies. Humanity did not turn away from those places, but they did not shield them from consequence. This was the hardest lesson. Freedom did not mean safety. It meant responsibility. Worlds that learned this grew stronger. Worlds that refused learned slowly or painfully. Humanity remained present through it all, a constant reminder that there was no going back to the age of chains. Eventually, the last true empire made its choice. It had watched everything unfold, silent and calculating. Its rulers believed they understood humanity better than the others had. They believed patience could be used against patience. They announced a complete withdrawal from contested space, recognition of all independent worlds, and an offer of alliance with humanity as equals. Many in the galaxy celebrated, believing this was the final step toward peace. Humanity did not celebrate. They hesitated. The response came after careful consideration. A human representative addressed the galaxy openly. "We accept your recognition of others," the representative said. "We accept your withdrawal. We do not accept your alliance." Shock rippled outward. The explanation followed, calm and firm. An alliance implies shared authority. Shared authority implies permission to rule. That is not something we will ever grant again. The Empire protested, argued, reasoned. Humanity did not move. In the end, the Empire stood alone, not attacked, not punished, simply irrelevant. Within a generation, it reformed itself from within or faded into history. No one recorded which. It no longer mattered. As decades passed, historians began to argue over when the war had actually ended. Some pointed to the disappearance of Earth, others to the graveyard of empires, others to the first slave world that refused to work. Humans rejected all of these. They marked a different moment as the end. The moment the galaxy stopped asking what humanity would do next and started asking what it would do itself. Earth eventually opened its surface again, cautiously, not as a capital, not as a holy site, but as a place of learning. Visitors were allowed in small numbers, guided not by soldiers, but by teachers. They were shown human history honestly. The wars, the mistakes, the near extinctions, the centuries when humanity had almost destroyed itself. No attempt was made to glorify survival. The lesson was simple. We were not special, the guide said. We just kept going. For many visitors, that was the most unsettling truth of all. Children born across the galaxy grew up hearing stories not of conquest, but of refusal, of a species that had been offered power and declined ownership, of fleets that could have ruled everything and chose instead to make ruling impossible. Humanity became a cautionary tale, not because of what they did, but because of what they did not do. Ambitious leaders found it harder to justify domination when history showed a different outcome was possible. One final message was recorded by humanity and archived publicly, intended not for its time, but for whatever came next. It was short. "If you are listening to this," the message said, "it means you are capable of understanding. We were once where you are. Afraid. Angry. Certain we were right. If you think we were heroes, you have missed the point. We were survivors who got tired of surviving the same mistakes. Do better than we did." No threats followed. No promises. Just that. The galaxy never became perfect. Conflicts still happened. Worlds still failed. People still hurt each other. Humanity did not fix existence. They never claimed to. What they did was remove the excuse that cruelty was inevitable. Once that excuse was gone, responsibility had nowhere to hide. And so, when future civilizations looked back on the moment every empire chose to enslave Earth, they no longer saw it as humanity's rise. They saw it as the galaxy's last mistake before it learned. Humanity did not become rulers, gods, or conquerors. They became something far more dangerous to tyranny. They became proof. Proof that power could be refused. Proof that fear could be outgrown. Proof that mercy, when chosen freely, could reshape an entire galaxy. And that was why, long after fleets rusted and borders faded, one truth remained carved into galactic memory. Humanity was underestimated once. No one ever made that mistake again.